Good morning, everyone, to the Greens EFA press briefing with our presidents, Philippe LAMBERTS and Terry REINTKE. And we just had the debate about China. So we start with Philippe.
Oui, et donc le débat est encore en cours. A priori, on sent une assez grande unité maintenant dans la stratégie chinoise. Donc le discours de von der Leyen a été comment est-ce que je dirais, suivi par beaucoup d'intervenants. Maintenant, il faut voir dans quelle mesure tout ça est sincère. Ça me fait un peu rigoler quand j'entends, par exemple, Marco Zanni, au nom de ID, plaider le fait que l'Union européenne ne doit pas être complaisante avec des régimes autoritaires, etc. Je me demande parfois si Salvini, son patron, est d'accord avec ça, mais enfin, bon, peu importe. Donc, il y a quelques problèmes, je pense, de cohérence interne. Et puis, ce que je vois aussi, c'est que cette vieille tradition de « soyons soft avec la Chine parce que ça peut servir nos intérêts », ben, cette tradition, elle n'a pas encore tout à fait quitté la scène. Je veux dire, quand Scholz ou Sanchez ou Macron vont en Chine, ben, c'est clairement aussi avec des intentions commerciales assez affirmées et ça a l'air de prendre parfois toute la place. Donc je vois que les vieux réflexes ont la vie dure et il faut quand même bien se rendre compte que pour l'Europe, faire preuve de colonne vertébrale, faire preuve de capacité d'autonomie, ben, ça coûte. Ça coûte, on le voit bien avec notre réaction à l'égard de l'agression russe en Ukraine et parfois cette idée qu'il faut faire des efforts pour être fort, cette idée-là, elle n'est pas toujours unanimement partagée. Donc en tout cas au niveau des intentions, il me semble qu'il y a pas mal d'unité. Maintenant on verra dans la durée si la politique chinoise de l'Union européenne est tenue au fil des années. Dernier petit mot sur ce volet-là. Bon, moi j'ai évité de mentionner explicitement Emmanuel Macron dans mon discours, mais il y a quelque chose qui me frappe chez cet homme qui est arrivé, donc rappelez-vous son discours à la Sorbonne, comme un président français vraiment volontaire pour réengager fortement la France sur la scène européenne. Quand on voit les années précédentes, en particulier celle de François Hollande, c'était quand même unanimement accueilli positivement. Et je me rappelle encore l'atmosphère qui a entouré son élection ici au sein du Parlement européen. Et cet homme a un talent quand même incroyable pour bousiller lui-même son agenda politique. Je veux dire, la manière dont il s'y prend, le moment auquel il parle, ce qu'il dit, la manière dont il le dit, ce sont les armes les plus puissantes pour détruire son propre agenda. Et donc, il y a quelque chose qui m'interrogera toujours chez cet homme-là, parce que oui, et on l'a même entendu chez Manfred Weber, chez Ursula von der Leyen, chez Iratxe Garcia, il nous faut une autonomie stratégique en Europe, bien sûr, c'est quelque chose de plus en plus partagé, mais si on retrouve dans ce concept d'autonomie stratégique le vieux fond anti-américain nourri dans pas mal de milieux en France, ben alors évidemment, c'est l'échec garanti d'une stratégie d'autonomie. Et ça, je ne comprends pas. Je trouve que pour un président français qui voulait vraiment jouer un rôle moteur en Europe, ben, il se retrouve finalement à unifier tout le monde, mais contre lui. Et donc, c'est peut-être pas la meilleure manière de faire l'Europe. Un petit mot peut-être sur quelque chose que j'ai entendu hier en plénière. Vous savez, on a voulu débattre, la droite a voulu débattre d'overreaching de la Commission qui imposerait à des États membres des obligations en matière environnementale. Hein. Ça a commencé par l'extrême droite hollandaise, relayée par le PPE. Et quand vous lisez ce qu'ils demandent, ils disent « Oui, mais en fait, il faut combattre les volontés environnementalistes de la Commission qui mettent en péril la sécurité alimentaire. » Et je relève ça parce que je l'ai déjà souvent fait dans cette salle, pour voir à quel point le langage est perverti. Donc ces gens vous disent « Laissez-nous continuer à polluer les sols pour pouvoir produire de l'alimentation. » Enfin, je veux dire, quand la FAO et le Programme des Nations Unies pour l'environnement nous disent 40% des terres arables sont aujourd'hui dégradées, c'est-à-dire plus en état de produire de la nourriture correctement, elles le sont pourquoi? Précisément à cause de cette agriculture basée sur les produits chimiques. Et donc vous avez ces gens de la droite et de l'extrême droite qui nous disent pour pouvoir nourrir le monde, il faut qu'on puisse encore plus polluer la planète. Mais enfin, ça ne va pas la tête. Et ce qui est terrible, c'est qu'un certain nombre de commentateurs gobent ce discours. Ah oui, on ne va pas savoir nourrir le monde sans mettre du pétrole dans le sol. Ouais, enfin, il faut quand même revenir aux fondamentaux que si on veut que la Terre soit nourricière puisse nous nourrir, eh bien, il va falloir protéger cette terre, pas juste parce qu'on veut que cette planète soit jolie, juste parce qu'on veut pouvoir vivre dessus. Et bon, cette perspective, parfois, elle est un peu perdue, là.
Thanks, Philippe. Terry, the floor is yours.
And speaking about resilience and competitiveness for the future of the European Union, obviously you know that we are going to take a very important step this week where we are going to vote on part of the Fit for 55 package, the ETS, the CBAM and the Social Climate Fund. And of course, for us as Greens, this is a crucial part of the promise that was given after the election in 2019 with the Green Deal. This is an important aspect of it. It would not have been possible without strong Greens here in the European Parliament to push this forward. So indeed, it is a very important step, but we see this unfortunately against a backdrop of especially the EPP turning to the right and also in parts turning against the Green Deal, which we see with a lot of concern. However, we hope obviously that the vote today is going to be positive, not only in order to reach the Paris goals, which the European Union is committed to, but also for making the European Union more independent from autocracies, not to say the least Russia, because the Green Deal is a very important piece of our agenda towards a different security policy for the future, and of course also for job creation in the European Union, because with the Green Deal, with the expansion of renewable energy, with the renovation wave, we will create a lot of green jobs, and this is something that is good for our citizens and that is good for the economy. However, there is still a side where we need to do more. We can see that we become more ambitious when it comes to reducing emissions, but when and if this has a negative social consequences, we need also as a European Union to stand by the people who are now concerned about making ends meet, about paying their bills. The Social Climate Fund is a first step into this direction, but for us, not far-reaching enough. We can see when we look at the performance of buildings, but we can also see when we look at other factors that bills are going to increase. And for that, we need to support especially the most vulnerable in society. So this will certainly stay a topic where we are going to push for more than what will hopefully be agreed today. The second point I quickly wanted to mention is, you have probably heard about it, we are going to discuss and adopt a resolution on the situation in Uganda, where recently Parliament has adopted an anti-LGBTI bill. This is part of a global backlash on fundamental rights, especially of minorities. And in this resolution, we are condemning this step, and we are highlighting that according to the Ugandan constitution, but also according to international human rights, this goes against the rights of minorities. And as I said, this is not an isolated case. We can see that there is a campaign against LGBTI, against the LGBTI community across the globe, while at the same time, and this is the more positive news, we can also see that in terms of decriminalization of homosexuality, other countries in the world are taking positive steps. So the European Union will continue to firmly stand with the LGBTI community across the globe, fight against this anti-LGBTI campaign, and in favor of global decriminalization of homosexuality. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Are there any questions? You can ask questions in the room or online, and please indicate the name and the media you work with. Yes, please.
Hello, Pietro Guastamacchia, ANSA News Agency. I think I missed at the beginning of Mr. Lambert's intervention. Why should Mr. Salvini disagree with Zanni? That was a very quick, sad sentence. If you can please explain it more.
If you apply what Marco Zanni said to Russia and not to China, you find this completely at odds with the attitude of Salvini over the years towards Putin. I mean, there's no two kinds of autocracies, you know. It's not that some autocracies are okay and some others not. And this is why, at least you may say, Meloni has had a track record of a pro-American stance and anti-Putin, but the other part of the Italian far right has been quite closely associated with Putin. And therefore, it's good to see now that they resolve against autocracies and the fact that Europe must defend freedom, etc. I rejoice about that. I just want to be sure that indeed this is widely shared in his own political family, and of that I'm not sure. Voilà, that's all.
Yeah, Andy Bounds from the Financial Times. A question for Philippe Lambert. Isn't it too late to decouple from China? If you want to do a green transition by 2030, we're almost entirely reliant in Europe on solar panels from China, wind turbines from China, raw materials from China. I mean, how do we get off China by then? And how many processing sites and lithium mines do you want to see in the European Union? Thanks.
Well, I'm reading every day a paper called the Financial Times, and there are very good stories in it about the difficulties of decoupling. Your colleagues made a very good example about Apple, which is a case, of course, of extreme integration. Not everything is extremely integrated, but indeed it's going to be difficult to reduce the dependencies. By the way, you never heard me using the word decouple, because decoupling, I think, and your paper demonstrates it very credibly, is impossible. It's just impossible. And this is where the strategy outlined by von der Leyen in terms of de-risking seems more appropriate to me. That is reduce dependencies, but we will not eliminate them. Now, back to what you said about mines. I had a similar question last time in Strasbourg. And yes, as we say in French, on ne fait pas d'omelette sans casser d'œufs. You don't do omelets without breaking eggs. Yes, it's true that if you want humans to live on this planet, there will be an ecological impact. And if Europe wants to be more self-reliant, we have to accept that some of that ecological impact that we were all too happy to dislodge or outsource, to the rest of the world, well, we'll need to take it with us. We started doing that with waste, stopping export, and actually we have not stopped exporting waste, but in theory, we will recycle our own waste ourselves, which I hope will make us more aware of the fact that we should produce less waste. But indeed, if you want to have lithium, if you want to have rare earth, you have to dig in some places. And it's not so that Europe can be immune from that. And these are the trade-offs that we need to make. And policy is all about this, about trade-offs. What do you accept as bad in order to serve the common good? And yes, we need to take a hard look at ourselves. In terms of what are we prepared to do in order to be self-reliant. And again, the bottom line to that is what I said in my introduction, is that autonomy, resilience requires, the transition requires effort. And of course, it's always more comfortable not to make any efforts. But we will need collectively as Europeans to roll up our sleeves. But the good news is that I think we are capable of that.
May I add something on this? I remember times when Greens were made fun of because we spoke about recycling and reusing, and now we see that actually if we want to be competitive in the future, the question of how well can we recycle, how well can we reuse, how can we pull off a circular economy is going to be one of the major questions that we will have to answer. So yes, indeed, we should have started this earlier. We shouldn't have done what Philippe said, outsource photovoltaics fully to China, for example. But now, at least, we should learn the lesson, because the question of whether we are going to be competitive in the future is dependent on whether we can indeed recycle, reuse, pull off a green transformation that deserves its name. And this week we are taking important steps into that direction, but we need to go further.
Are there any other questions? Yes, please.
Consoli from Asca News, Italy. There was yesterday a vote concerning migration in Italy, and this, I'm sorry I was not at the beginning here, so I don't know if you have mentioned it, and the title for the debate that will take place today was accepted as proposed by the left, the socialists and you and the Greens. What do you expect from this debate? I mean, what is that you are actually criticizing in the Italian government attitude, and that you would like Europe to do in this debate? Thank you.
Terry? Well, I think we have always been absolutely clear on the fact that we need solidarity on the European level. We have always been in favor of a relocation system. We have always said that the Dublin system as it exists now is not workable, because by default, you will have member states that are at the external borders of the European Union have a higher burden to carry, so we want to have a responsibility being shared. At the same time, we can also see that especially far-right, right-wing political forces are trying to instrumentalize this debate, and they're basically trying to create a threat, a feeling of, something that is overwhelming us, overburdening us. We believe in orderly border management, but we also believe in the rule of law and solidarity. And most of all, we believe that the dying at sea in the Mediterranean has to stop. So indeed, we need search and rescue missions that actually deserve their names. We cannot outsource this to private actors, to civil society organizations. The European Union together, also Italy, has a responsibility there, and we would like to constructively go into that direction and not create a fortress Europe as some right-wing forces would like.
You want to add anything, Philippe? Okay. So, okay, last two questions.
Very short.
Just a second.
Yes.
First one was...
Sorry.
Oui, bonjour. Qu'est-ce que vous pensez du fait que certains, et notamment des Français, vont voter contre la réforme du marché carbone, enfin ETS2, parce qu'ils ont peur de voir des mouvements de gilets jaunes comme on l'a vu en France, partout en Europe? Est-ce que c'est une inquiétude purement française parce que nous, on l'a vécu et pas les autres pays? Et est-ce que ça pourrait se matérialiser? Est-ce que c'est en effet, selon vous, un des plus gros risques du vote de ce paquet, d'avoir des soulèvements sociaux?
I think the concern that we share is that not enough is being done to support especially most vulnerable households. So we think that indeed there needs to be more steps taken. The Social Climate Fund can only be a first step into that direction. But overall, we said, looking at the full package that we see, we need to implement this reform now. We don't have time to lose. The climate crisis is proceeding. I mean, I don't have to tell you the droughts, the forest fires we can already see today. So we need to have this reform on the ETS. We need to introduce the CBAM. We need to take the next step. But questions remain, especially in terms of social consequences, and the European Union, but also the member states, will have to do more to protect the most vulnerable in society.
Et la bonne nouvelle, si je peux me permettre, c'est qu'ils ont le temps de se préparer, hein, parce que le marché ETS2 rentre en service en 28, on est en 23. Donc, si la volonté politique est là, de revoir le cadre fiscal, de revoir le cadre de la sécurité sociale, de revoir l'organisation du marché du travail pour faire en sorte que les revenus soient mieux distribués dans la société. Rien n'empêche les gouvernements de le faire. Et évidemment, je comprends évidemment la sensibilité française où, après 6 ans maintenant de gouvernement Macron, en fait, les inégalités se sont accrues. Les grands bénéficiaires des 6 ans de Macron sont été les hauts revenus et les hauts patrimoines. Alors je comprends évidemment qu'en France, on se dise, ouais, si on doit attendre de nos gouvernements des réformes favorables aux bas revenus, aux petits patrimoines, on est mal barré. Mais rien n'empêche d'envisager, d'espérer une alternance politique en France non plus. Hein.
Last question.
Yeah, sorry, my question was a follow-up to my colleague. The title by Manfred Weber that was voted down mentioned an emergency situation regarding migration, while the title that was voted didn't mention. So my quick question would be like, do you believe in these current weeks, is there a migration emergency in Italy or not?
This is exactly what makes me mad, is to portray, everything counts, huh? To portray the challenge of asylum and migration as an emergency, as a threat, as flows, as something that overwhelms you, whereas, look, what is Europe? 450 million people? We are talking about what? At most hundreds of thousands of people. Can't we manage this? And the whole narrative of the far right is to portray that as the big threat against which we need to defend ourselves. And this is where, by and large, they have been successful, because when I look at the European Council, meeting after meeting after meeting, and I read the conclusions of the European Council, and to be honest, also the letters of the President of the Commission to the Member States, I see this whole mindset of seeing asylum and migration as basically a response to a threat winning over the debate. And this is what we are fighting tooth and nail against. You might say, at the end of the day, you accepted the debate. Yes, but words matter. I've made that point over and over again. We have to be careful as to how we use words, because words create emotions. And emotions can be very positive. They can lift you up, but they can also make you react in very bad ways.
Thank you, Philippe. Thank you, Terry. And thanks all, and have a good afternoon.